like to call a meeting of the Willits City Council order for February 10th. We all rise and join in with the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Kathy, see who's here.
Okay. Councilmember Patty?
Yes.
Strong?
Yes.
Vanderbilt? Here. Weinstein?
I'm here.
Mayor Burton?
Here. Jump right into public communications. Do we have anybody who wishes to address the council on items not on the agenda? No action will be taken. Please just step up. Please introduce yourself. If you care to sign in, you can do that too, but we don't check.
I'm so full. Hi, Council. My name is Tracy. I'm here again asking you to please put me on the agenda for the cannabis policy in Willits City. So does anybody know what's happened since the last time? I did get a report from Holly that there's an ad hoc going on, and I was suggesting that maybe an entrepreneur could be on that ad hoc, especially a cannabis entrepreneur, just someone so that we make decisions with education without, knowing the full history and what's going on. So for clarity, I am here to ask if I could be on the agenda, please, for the next meeting, as far as the cannabis policy as it relates to the Willits city limits.
Well, I can tell you that when there is a cannabis itemized agenda item, you'll be welcome to participate in that. The ad hoc committee that I've formed will just be the two council members and staff to develop a proposal to bring back for consideration to the city.
May I ask at this time, why was it that perhaps, you wanted to, no.
That was the direction the council decided to take, and I took as mayor.
Uh-huh.
So there'll be plenty of public input part of it once we conclude our ad hoc committee.
Is there a way that we could get on the agenda for next, there's no way to get on the agenda either?
It's not an agendized item until we bring it back. I just stay in touch with the council member.
How long do you think that could take? Is there an idea?
This is, this is your chance to speak to us. It's not really a give and take.
Oh, it's just a presentation. Okay,
Yes.
so I'll give you my spiel. So I am hoping that with these decisions that we act with clarity and not let preconceptions or prejudices, cloud our thinking as far as making educated, totally community-based decisions, because we're all in this together. So it's like totally, it's not a fight. It's almost like embrace it and celebration, because this is going to bring healthy, the proposal is for just a medical situation, a true medical situation, a smoke-free cannabis operation. But anyway, that's the proposal. And I really wish it would get on the agenda so we could all talk about it, because I feel like communication is such a part of making healthy decisions. So you're over there,
I can promise you it will be on the agenda and that we will have public discussion about it.
Excellent. Okay. I'll be in touch.
Sure.
Thank you guys
You're
so
welcome.
much for everything.
I have a question, Bruce. I know you said the decision was to only have two council members and staff in the ad hoc committee. Would there be any opportunity to bring in any interested public people to talk to them or not?
That'll be, I guess, the discretion of the ad hoc committee as they go through their process.
But it seems like the people on the ad hoc committee are the ones that, okay.
I'd be glad to talk to you about this individually at another time.
Okay, got
Okay.
it. Cool.
Sure.
Okay.
Do we have any other public communications? Seeing none, we will move to the consent calendar. Just two items on the consent calendar.
I'll move we approve the consent calendar.
I second it.
Any discussion? Any public comment? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strathman?
Yes.
Strong?
Yes.
Vanderbilt?
Yes.
Weinstein?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes. Cruising right along, right to appeal. Persons are dissatisfied with the decision of city council may have a right to review of that decision by a court. city's adopted 1094.6, the Code of Civil Procedure, which generally limits 90 days to time within decisions city council and boards and agencies may be judicially challenged. I don't think we have anything until we get to city manager verbal reports.
Well, I have I guess a question on the informational reports. The new business licenses, I was fascinated by one of the new businesses on the list called Cleopatra's Temple. Do you know anything about that?
Not a thing.
I mean, is there something that we, the city, that you as the code enforcement?
You know, Kathy, do you remember what that is?
That's a private men's club?
Oh, that sounds so much better. Okay.
I don't really know that much about it at this time.
I can tell you what's happening there. This is the old Masonic temple.
Yeah.
And the owner, David Parmenter, would like to use that as a residence. Our municipal code allows a commercial building to be used as a residence, as an accessory to a commercial use. The men's club is listed as a commercial use.
So a private club, and I understand the concept of privacy, but maybe I'm projecting, but can anything go on behind those closed doors?
I think that's maybe a better question for Jim, because I really don't know.
And I'm not going to sit here and mention what they could possibly be, but I think we can use our imagination.
No, I don't think it's intended to go in that direction at all. But
And
It has to
things
be
like,
a lawful use,
Okay.
you can't, the city does not issue business licenses for persons to operate illegal establishments.
But I guess the reality is, you don't really know what's going on there unless you walk in and take a look.
Well, I think that's a concern that John and maybe Dusty may have, is wanting to know more about what this proposed use is, and to determine whether or not it would be appropriate to allow a residential use incidental to that commercial use.
Or even that commercial use if it's an activity that doesn't belong in the city.
well, and we have zoning regulations against strip clubs, for example.
I didn't see it.
We already have those things in place.
I honestly, I don't think there's any intention to take it in that direction.
Okay. It's like a big flag that waved. I had to acknowledge the flag. Thank you.
It's a zombie club.
Wait a minute. Zombie killer.
Sorry.
Cleopatra.
I don't know if that cleared up the air much. I feel better.
I feel so clean.
Adrian,
Yes.
what can you add to the discussion
I'll
about
take this-
anything?
I'll take this in a different direction. Rod, I flipped the coin without you. We have handed out some written materials, and we have a couple of charts that we want to project on the big screen. If you recall, we received a violation from the Division of Drinking Water last mid-August, on our total trihalomethanes. And we sent notices to the water customers on September 10th. And we also reported on this the night before at the council meeting. At that meeting, Rod had stated that we should anticipate violations with the next 1 or 2 quarterly monitoring reports. And as expected, we did receive a subsequent violation that wasn't the result of just that testing, but the result of the annual averaging. So the averaging did, indeed keep us over the MCL, the maximum contaminant levels, for that quarterly report, which was in October. But we didn't.
For those 19 customers.
Right. This is on there were 2 sampling sites, Walker Road and Spruce Street. And there are areas that they have fewer residents. They're into the line sampling locations, and so the water remains stagnant. And anyway, because we haven't done the flushing program for the last 2 or 3 years, we've run into this issue. We didn't receive a violation. We were not over the MCL this last quarterly report, so that's good news. And since October, city staff has been doing much more frequent testing. So what's required are the quarterly testing reports, but they've been doing the testing about every 2 weeks. And in the written materials, you'll see a chart that gives the dates and the results from those tests. So we haven't exceeded the MCL since October. We will again be sending notices to our water customers, which is required by the Division of Drinking Water because of that quarterly report that was over because of the averaging. We're going to include the supplemental information, hopefully to better educate the community about the situation and assure them that we don't have any current violations and have not since October. So this is just, it's not to make light of it at all, but it's a requisite notice that we have to send to the customers because of a report that exceeded the MCLs. Rod, I wanted to have you come up and add to it. We have a couple of charts here. The first one that you're looking at is our distribution system map. We don't have a laser pointer, we discovered late this afternoon, but want to just jump in and take over as far as the 2 sampling locations?
Start there?
Yeah.
Is all of that? So all, this doesn't show all of...
No, I zoomed it in to show the 2 sampling locations. So the upper left quadrant with the yellow, I think.
Oh, that's Spruce? Is it in the upper yellow?
Spruce Street Sampling Station.
Is it here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
The Walker Road is down here.
yeah, that's right. So Walker Road is going to be down on the...
Lower off the screen.
Yeah. So,
Hit that button. Or that one.
Green
Where's the
line.
mouse?
Maybe that, yeah, that one.
There you go.
Okay, there's the
This
Walker.
technology here. It's right before the trestle on Walker Road. So one of the things to keep in mind when we do these grab samples out at these locations are points, 2 of the points that are furthest away from our treatment plant. Because the water comes, so if we look, if you look at the diagram, the water comes from the treatment plant, 1.5 million, yeah, right there, 1.5 million gallon tank, goes down east side, goes down and hits East Side Road, down to East Hill, makes its way to the 3 million gallon tank on Bechtel Road. Right, yeah, right
That
there.
dot.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah,
With the arrow.
yeah, right there.
And we should say that we
So-
do have these maps on the handout.
Then that water travels all the way down 101, Bechtel Road 101, out Walker Road, up to the Berry Hill tank right next to Centennial. And the sampling point in between is a mix of water from the tank and new water coming from the 3 million gallon. So it's a similar situation at our other sampling station on Spruce. It's at the corner of Spruce and Redwood. It's what we would consider the older, some of the oldest water in the system. And when we're talking about disinfection byproducts, it's not the concentration that we start with at the 1.5 million gallon tank is not the concentration you see throughout the system, because that as the water ages in the system, that reaction continues and disinfection byproducts continue to be formed, so the concentration increases because of the chlorine residual that we're required to have in our drinking water. That's it. the chlorine residual once it leaves the plant. So it's an ongoing process throughout the system. Since September, we started using a different chemical in our clarifier, new clarifier at the water treatment plant, and we've seen very good results removing organic material at the source. So if we remove organic material at the clarifier, it decreases our disinfection byproduct concentration leaving the plant, therefore it decreases our disinfection byproduct concentration throughout the system. One of those processes. We're also helped with the change in weather and varying usage, etc. How do I get to the next slide? Can I go?
Oh, minimize this window. It's in a different window.
So you can see our results, blue being Walker Road, green being the Spruce Street. Looking back to 2013, October of 2013, you can see the concentrations increase as, well, we can, there are a lot of factors. The drought conditions we faced, water conservation, because once, especially out Walker Road, which is a long ways from, as we showed, is a long ways from our treatment plant with far fewer users, so the water doesn't get replenished as much. It just doesn't. And then when people are conserving water, that just makes it worse.
Exacerbates.
Yeah, it exacerbates the situation. So if you look from here in October, we started testing about every 2 weeks and taking our samples down to Alpha Labs and having them test for disinfection byproducts, and it coincides. We were seeing results before that, about the end of August, beginning of October. I think it was about the end of August we started using ferric chloride in our clarifier, and as I stated earlier, that had a decrease the organic material in our raw water, and the decrease in our disinfection byproduct concentrations has followed. So based on our January samples that's shown in the supplemental information, we're no longer in violation for that 4-quarter.
What's the violation number?
80.
80, okay.
80 parts per billion.
Okay.
So one thing to note is that the Division of Drinking Water has updated their standard language in the public notice, and it's on the last page of the supplemental information. Under the question, will I get sick immediately from drinking water with PPHMs? And the new language in the Division of Drinking Water notice is the scientific study that is the basis for this regulation showed that some people who drink 2 liters, more than a half gallon, of water every day containing disinfection byproducts in excess of the maximum limit over a 70-year period may experience liver, kidney, or central nervous system problems and may have an increased risk of getting cancer. So that gives some perspective to the...
Would you repeat the parameters again?
It's right here.
No, I think it's important for people to...
Page 3.
I think we did it.
Yeah, but I think the point you made, it's like smoking cigarettes, I guess, if you smoke or drink alcohol or, tell me the limits again.
If you drink a half a gallon, or more than a half a gallon of water every day, that was in excess of 80 parts per billion disinfection byproducts for 70 years, then you may experience liver, kidney, or central nervous system problems and may have an increased risk of getting cancer.
Okay,
That's some people. That's,
right, okay.
so if you drink it every day for 70 years and it's always above that 80 line, like we've had a few months up there, then you may have some health risks.
Okay, that's a good point to emphasize. Thank you.
Ron, will the flushing of this area in particular be an assistance to this going forward, or is it not really related?
I think the flushing will help. It'll get rid of some of the material, some of the stuff we've been building up over the last 3 years since we haven't flushed in 3 years. I think the chemical process, the chemical treatment at the plant is probably more effective because you can see even when we were getting into the October dry months and November dry months, we've decreased our concentration without flushing. So
Have you had a chance to flush either of these systems yet?
we haven't done either of these yet.
Isn't Berry Hill empty?
Well, it did.
That
Yeah.
seems like a pretty good flush to me.
So, yeah, Linda makes a good point. When we had the situation with the leak out there by the trestle, that essentially did some flushing out on Walker Road. It did not do any flushing on Spruce Street, and we see similar trends. So we're trending downward and expect to continue that way. We're going to be adding some aeration at our tanks. It's not really aeration, more recirculation. We're pulling water from the bottom, spraying it on the top to help us with this problem.
All right, thank you, Ron. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. I think this is very encouraging, and it sounds like both the treatment options that you're implementing are having a really good effect, and if we get the flushing problem, that will help again. But I do want to just say that even though the guidelines say, you know, a half gallon a day for 70 years, over 80 the whole time is where you might have health impacts, I always think that there are impacts even at lower levels. And so our goal is to have absolutely the least problems and the lowest levels, because you know, even if we haven't been drinking water for 70 years, and even if it's only been a spike a few times, we still don't want to have those spikes. So I appreciate that you're going for a really clean system.
Our goal is to not have to have this conversation. So,
Yeah.
And there's a reason for these limits, and we plan to not
Yes.
not go through this again.
And
But our results.
Just to clarify the fact that the violation was back in November. There hasn't been any, additional, not back in, I'm sorry, October.
Right.
Where it was just right, barely at that level, and we were informed of it back then, but the noticing became, more clear going forward, so I.
Right. If you look
Yeah.
at page 3 of the supplemental information, you'll see the average over the last, since October 8th, the October 8th test is 065 and 062. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tests. And our latest results, actually we just got some other results back, and I don't recall what they were off the top of my head, but I believe they were even lower than the 0.5 and 0.45 that we got last month, so.
Because I do want to say that I have
Market improvement.
confidence in our water, and I drink it every day. I'm drinking it right now. But yeah, we want to produce the best, cleanest water that we can, and I think we have this pristine watershed, and, because of the rules and regulations having to do with chlorine and things like that, to clean our water, that's what, yeah. It's part of the process and the balance of making this happen, but I have confidence in the water that we have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rod.
Thank you.
So
Any other reports?
Yes, just a couple. In keeping the topic of the water plant, I just wanted to share publicly that Steve Anderson, our chief plant operator, has retired, And we've made an interim appointment of Clarence Tarver as the interim chief plant operator. And we've been advertising for water operators for the last several weeks with an open recruitment until all the vacancies are filled. But we've done some internal reassignments and are in the process of hiring somebody new that's an experienced operator. And then we'll have one or two other operator positions that would be suitable for an entry-level person. So we are, I feel good about the decisions that we've made there, and certainly are sorry to see Steve leave, but you know, it was a retirement, and he's hoping to enjoy his retirement and knows he has an open invitation to come visit. Okay, moving on. We were anticipating tonight to have the lease agreement back for the Willits Center for the Arts, but Jim and the new board are still fleshing that out. I think it's just about done at this point.
I think they have approved the changes. They had some suggestions, and I incorporated those suggestions, sent it back to them, and Kathy tells me that they're on board with it, so they're ready to sign.
So it wasn't ready in time for this agenda, but it will be on the next agenda. Likewise, we were expecting to have a contract tonight for the consultants on the downtown streets and alleys connectivity study, and that one is still being fleshed out, but it will definitely be back at the next meeting. We were able to get an extension from MCOG on that grant project timeline, and so it would have concluded, I think we had it slated for May, to conclude in May, but we had also anticipated getting started earlier on it. So we've extended that. Dusty, was that through September? Is that what you told me?
The grant for through the next fiscal cycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dusty's been taking the lead on that. Rod and Jeremy passed the baton to him, and he's working with the consultants to finalize the scope of work on that.
At this moment, actually.
Oh, perfect.
We're still well within Caltrans's window of expectation.
This actually isn't related to the Caltrans. So there are two projects. The Main Street Corridor Enhancement Project, that's the big grant. That's the one that has the tight coordination with Caltrans. This is the kind of a supplemental project that we got a grant award from MCOG on their overall work program. And this one was for $65,000, and it's to do this, basically a traffic circulation study on the downtown streets and alleyways.
I missed that. All right. Shame on me. All right. Anything else?
That's it?
Okay. Department recommendations. Anything for the city clerk this evening?
A couple things, 2700 is printed at the end of the month, and the League of California Cities RSVPs are due by Friday.
Or what?
The League of California Cities.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Jerry, anything in the cop shop?
Forgot finance.
Oh, yeah, I'll get back to that. Thank
Pulpit
you.
of the television screen out there to again, cast the recruitment tool out there for dispatchers. I'm still looking for dispatchers. We sent out some letters. We've set a date, but we're still taking applications. And again, I have 2 positions for dispatcher. We will eventually be flying the community service officer position. And that's all I've got to report tonight.
Susie? No? Okay. Anything from city planning? Dusty?
Dusty Dooley, city planner. Staying busy, touching a lot of projects, long-range projects, current projects. Adrian introduced me at the last MCOG meeting. I'll be attending those meetings on behalf of the city moving forward. Meeting a lot of interesting community members, also meeting some of our other employees very impressed how there seems to be a common thread of folks sort of getting in where they fit in. If it goes sort of beyond their job scope, everyone's sort of just getting in where they need to in order to get things done. So I've been impressed by my colleagues so far, and hopefully I can emulate some of their characteristics. I did want to mention the Revitalization Economic Development Committee. There was an email that went out to members asking about a couple potential meeting dates, those being Wednesday, March 2nd and Thursday, March 3rd at 4 o'clock. So hoping one of those dates works for us to meet. Again, sort of envision kind of putting together a to-do list, making sure that we make a couple priorities rise to the top to focus on, and then go from there. I think we have a number of meetings scheduled after that on our calendar that the council adopted.
Those both work for me. Either one is fine.
What's that?
Both those dates are fine for me.
Thank you.
And would it be possible to get a roster of our current Revi Ed makeup emailed to us?
Yeah.
And
Of course.
just really quickly on that note, we have the vacancy notice posted for 2 of those seats. And so I think at the next council meeting, we hope to have some applications before you for appointment to that committee.
Got it.
And that's what I had to share today.
Good, thank you, Dusty.
All right.
I have a John question. I don't know if he has any reports.
Well, let's see, should be able to get to that. Anything from you, John? Pretty quiet. What do you need?
I've got a quick question. We, on the consent calendar, we approved the collecting of the fees for the East Valley properties. Has there been anything that happened between our agenda packet and now that has resolved that in any way?
No.
All right. Dare to dream.
So, looks like we have something under Public Works and Engineering. Rob, looks like you're back up at it. Discussion of possible action to approve plans and specifications for Main Street Water Line Replacement Project Phase 3. And this is to go from State Street to Castile Lane. Final piece of the Main Street Water Line Replacement, which is timely to the link to the relinquishment project and trying to get this project buried before they cover it, want to cover it with sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and new asphalt. So it's, besides needing to improve fire flow to the high school and that northern piece of town, and an old line that has had more than its share of leaks. This has been a high priority project for the city, though it's lacked one vital element, which I think it still lacks, but is it?
What, funding?
The funding.
Yeah, but given that, what do you recommend?
We're looking to get this out to bid in March. We had the entire amount in the budget for this year, $984,000, I believe. But our current estimate is $905,250, with an additional $5,000 for testing. And if you look at the fiscal impact, that's actually going to be most likely to be split between this fiscal year and next fiscal year. So we're estimating 25% this year. If we can get started before June 1st and get some work done, that would be helpful, I think. You know, it's kind of we needed to do it during the summer when school's out, but that's our plan. But we'll also be dealing with some summer traffic. Most of the work is kind of in the shoulder, so you know, we're anxious to get it started and get it done, so put it behind us. As it says here, I already stated that I'd like to start construction on June 1st, or no later than. Out to bid March 1st. We're ready to move forward.
Would you envision that to start in one spot and go to the other, one end and go to the other, or is it kind of a project that would?
I think it would start at one end and go to the other. So putting the pipe together and just stick.
Walk it down.
Okay,
All goes in one direction.
yeah. Holly, you had a question?
I had two questions. Is there any sort of salvage value? I just was reading that it's like copper pipes. Or something, it said something about copper.
There's some copper service lines.
Is there any sort of salvage value from stuff like that?
I don't know. I'm sure we'll, some of it, we're probably just gonna leave it and not try to dig it out of the street if we don't have to.
Okay.
So,
And my other question had to do with that construction timeline and Caltrans's child projects, specifically the sidewalk by the high school and the Sherwood Road. I mean, it sounds like the timeline's pretty aggressive, so we should be fine.
yeah, there's only one potential conflict, and that's with the storm drain pipe that's going in as part of the Sherwood Road intersection, and we're coordinating with Caltrans to make sure that we have the right elevation
And we'll
to get around their pipe.
And we'll be done before they get there.
We should be, yes.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna start that project this year, but I could be wrong.
Rod, are you anticipating using any city employees for this, or is this going to be strictly outside contractors?
Strictly outside contract.
Okay, you don't see any role for our own people?
Other than, we might stake it, and we'll inspect it, but the construction will be done by.
So I'm just kind of curious on the mechanics of this thing. Obviously, you're going to be disrupting this main line, and you've done it before on the southern end. How do you continue to supply water to the customers that are serviced by this end of the line?
I would imagine, because the new line's going in adjacent, next to the old line. So the old line's gonna stay in service until the very end. So we'll run new services, and we'll run the new line all the way up. It may go in sections. When we get to a hydrant and a valve, we may be able to isolate that section. We'll disinfect, pressure test, and do the service laterals. Then the contractor may choose to do it that way, or they may choose to put the entire line in, get it all pressure tested, disinfected, the back T testing completed, do the service laterals, and charge it up all at one time. So
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
yeah, but everybody else will stay in service, and then it's really quick to, once you get the new service across the road or to the meter, it's really quick to change it over. So.
Okay, good, thank you.
Larry?
On the map, I didn't see anything that mentioned that we're going to eventually in the city have a tank and stuff up on Bender Lane. Are we going to stub across the road and stub it so that we can tie into it eventually, or what's or have you given that any thought, or what?
We have, and I don't recall exactly what. We're aware that, we know that we're going to put a tank in there, and we know that we need to do some work up Bender.
No, I'm just asking if we're gonna go across the road and then just stub it off.
It's not being used. I
and-
don't know that
Right,
it's
I just don't
going
recall
anymore.
this specifically how we're going, if that pipe is big enough and in good enough shape to leave, and if it's not, we'll be replacing it.
Okay,
With
that's all I
with
need
the
to know,
project.
thank you.
So at this point, this project is going to be funded through our capital retained earnings, and do we have any offsets in any in-kind contributions from any other entity in this project at this time?
Not at this time.
Do we have any hope of anything like that?
We have an application in with the state. We filled out the FAST.
The FAST
application.
deal, yeah, the one that,
Yeah,
one-stop shop that,
Right. And it took us, the response was
Not fast?
4 to 6 weeks before we were assigned a project manager, and I believe their timing for funding a project is 9 months after the application is completed, and at this point, we haven't completed an application with them. So,
Bruce, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the bid for Main Street water line replacement project.
A second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any public comment on this item? Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Strange?
Yes.
Strong?
Yes.
Madhill?
Yes?
Ornstein?
Yeah.
Mayor Burton?
Yes. Well, I hope we can put this project together. Hope the bids come in where they need to be, and we can figure out a way to do this without doubling water rates again. It's an important project.
Thank you very much,
all right,
Rod.
thank you.
So I shouldn't have said that. We're not planning on doubling water rates. It's just a personal editorial here.
It's been budgeted into.
It's budgeted, but has an impact. We just finished a $1.5 million project using those reserve funds too, which we got $500,000 of assistance with. So we've had some fairly strong demand for that reserve fund. That's what it's there for. Actually, I can tell you with Adrian R.'s visit to the state and the rest, in trying to look for funding for this project, the biggest roadblock to getting any help was that we actually had been managing our fund
Too well.
Too well, and we actually had money, it's like.
When you say this project, you mean the one we just approved, or
The emergency.
Well, both of them, really. They both kind of, we were looking for both fundings, because they were coming out of the same, essentially out of the same fund, and that was, we didn't score high because we actually still had water in our pipes, and we had money in our capital account, and those that were getting help had one or neither, maybe. Okay, let's move on to council and committee reports. MCOG?
Yes, we had a meeting on the 1st, and it was an interesting meeting. Willits did not have anything taken away from it, but the rest of the county took a hit. The CTC has notified Caltrans that they're $750 million out of budget, and that we need to deprogram some projects around the state in order to make up this difference. And the Mendocino County portion of it, the 15% of it, is $3.7 million. And the things that they deprogrammed for the county was the North State Street interchange, Ukiah Roundabout on Low Gap Road in Bush, Fort Bragg, the Route 1 bike and pedestrian improvement, and Caltrans for Magalia downtown streetscape, and those things were deprogrammed as of the meeting, and so that's going to be our contribution to the state.
Okay, I think that there's hopefully that's all the money they come looking for. I think there's some indication that may not be a sufficient amount of
We hope so.
cutback. LAFCO?
LAFCO met and had a marathon meeting. We almost went into MCOG's time. The reason why they're having marathon meetings is because there's this backlog of getting all these MSRs done, and so we're just trying to power through them as quickly and yet accurately as possible. So we did a lot of that, and we had a big discussion about whether or not to do an RFP for the executive officer, because the firm that we've been working with, we're going to extend his contract to finish the MSRs, but as far as the running of the executive office of LAFCO, that I believe is going to go through an RFP process. It was a close vote, but that's where LAFCO's at.
Okay. MTA.
That's you.
Oh, yes, that's me. Sorry.
Or maybe it's not.
We met about 2 weeks ago, and I believe we have a special meeting scheduled to determine the process for attracting a new general manager. So we have a special meeting, I think, a week from Friday. We're looking at whether the salary is enough to attract a good general manager or not.
Is he set a date of retirement or something?
Dan has left as general manager, and Bruce
Richards
is the acting interim general manager right now. And he would like to, he would like us to find a permanent general manager. He's happy to serve right now, but not for a long term.
Okay.
Bruce?
Yes, sir.
Are you guys going to go out statewide, or how far are you going to go out to get a new person?
Yes, it will be advertised through the whole network of transportation agencies and posted, widely. They already did a posting and didn't get a whole lot of good applications in, so that's why we're having a special meeting to decide whether, to open it more broadly, to look at the salary range.
Do you know, are they going to be filling in a Blake's position?
I think
the organization?
Yeah, there are a number of vacancies, and so the transportation manager is also a vacancy. So the agency is right now, as I think Dusty was pointing out, people are filling in and trying to cover all the bases, but they are definitely understaffed. And but the idea, the hope is that we will have a new general manager on board to make some of those structural decisions, so that we don't, meanwhile hire people before the new general manager is in place. So it's very important to get that position filled first.
Okay, thank you. EMSWA?
Yeah, we met. Couple of things. They had a election of new officers, and I was elected chair.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And MSWA is going after grants to do various cleanup projects around the county, and we received one called a Farm and Ranch Grant for $199,000 to clean up the Lost Coast forest lands near Whitehorn, and they're intending to use the convict crews for that. The other hot button item is the
Whitehorn or Whitethorn?
I think Whitethorn.
Yeah, it says Whitehorn on here, so that could be a typo.
I think it's Thorn.
Anyway, there's a push on collecting old drugs and sharps, and there's a lot of different ways that they're looking to do it, where to do it, and how to fund it. There are several cities and counties south of us that have adopted ordinances, and we decided to take a wait-and-see attitude to see how it works out, because partially they're looking to have the drug companies, the ones who create the drugs, to fund it. And others are saying it should be the
Cartels, you mean?
Some may think of them that way. Others think that the local, drugstores should pay for these things. So that's still part of the controversy going around. I suggested that, what's the big deal? You just throw them in a big furnace and burn everything. Why can't we do it ourselves? But nobody likes my ideas. Maybe they're too simple. So anyway, we'll see how that works out.
Okay. League of California Cities, I think you want to expand on that, or just?
Note just that you all received a handout this evening that Kathy provided, and the second page has the menu, so you need to pick your menu choice. That's what, that and the RSVP is what Kathy's going to need by Friday.
And we're going to be attending the afternoon meeting, right? If we go to the meetings, not the morning, I'm guessing?
I believe you're,
I mean, the committee meetings are committee meetings. I thought the
There's no morning
business.
meeting.
Yeah, the
Pardon?
business
There's no
meeting.
morning meeting.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, the 1 o'clock meeting. But we're looking at the 3:15 meeting, I guess, to attend, right? Not the earlier one?
Well, I'm not sure.
I don't think you would be precluded from attending the
Yeah.
earlier one if you wanted to. I mean, I could,
But I
I could just double
recall the
check.
last time it was held here, we didn't attend the early
Right.
one. We sort of showed
Yeah.
up for the after one.
That's, yeah, that's probably the same. And the 3:15 one is where there'll be presentations
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff of interest to the council.
I didn't get the directions to the hospital.
All right, good, looking forward to it. Should be
Yeah, it looks nice.
a nice time to show off our new digs. Water and wastewater, I think we covered that tonight. Revite Ed, it's got
It's coming soon.
coming
March
soon.
2nd or,
Finance
Third or
Committee
fourth.
did meet
Last
Yeah.
week?
last week, and we had a mid-year budget review from presentation by Susie, and I don't think we saw anything that, clearly there are items in the budget that don't spend on a linear manner, and there was some, but I think overall, I mean, Susie, you want to give a little recap of that, but we looked at it page by page, and at the end of the day, we really didn't find anything that suggested there was anything that was out of it. I think part of it, part of any conversation about this is what is sales tax going to do?
Is there any major
What's-
hits or?
Well, again, we're looking, I think, the latest sales tax information we have, was it third quarter of 15? I mean, it was-
Right, so we have, we don't have the first quarter yet.
Okay.
But,
So those conversations are always somewhat,
and the
non-
property tax comes in, it doesn't come in 50/50, it comes in, I think, 45 and 55%. And so we have some of the revenue that we would expect, even the sewer revenue that we expected that we would have. We didn't get that until February, so it wasn't included in the report. But total general fund revenues are at 40% and expenses are at 46%. And when you take into account that you don't have your sales tax yet and you don't have your property tax yet, I think we're in pretty good. Pretty good.
yeah, man.
I was wondering, can we, the rest of the council that isn't on the committee, get a mid-year report too? Because.
And we will have a mid-year budget review at, I believe, the March 9th
Okay.
council meeting. So we will.
So you'll have
see
the full-
all that.
Yeah.
You'll have-
Yeah, thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment while Susie's up here. She shared with me after the Finance Committee meeting that we are ahead of schedule on our audit. And the preliminary report that she's received back, all of the previous recommendations have been cleared out. And the audit's looking really good. And I might add that this is the first audit on, just entirely on Susie's work as finance director. So kudos to you.
Absolutely. I wanted to add that too. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Other committee.
other ad hoc committees, as we stated at 2 meetings ago, I asked for anybody that was interested in serving on the marijuana local ordinance committee to contact me. I heard from Larry early on and didn't hear from anybody for another 3 or 4 weeks. So I gave the nod that Larry and I will serve on that, and I did hear from another council member subsequent to that, but I'd already made those commitments. So we will, I did also read that Woods deal was passed.
Right.
Though we have an ordinance in place, so we're not.
That's right.
We weren't under that same gun, but we will start our work on this project in a.
I will get you before your next meeting some sample ordinances that we might consider, some
Okay.
newly drafted ordinances from other cities in the state.
Good.
And yeah, I like the idea of tightening up the restrictions so that our code enforcement officer doesn't have these challenges of timing and things like that.
Yep, we are going to be on it. So, any other ad hoc committees that I'm forgetting about this evening?
I have another committee.
I have another committee.
Okay.
The NCRA met today in Healdsburg, and the main challenge, we okayed some leases for Rails with Trails usage up in Arcata, but we also are updating our, as part of the Eureka Arcata.
I was just trying to think of what railroad was running in Eureka, but I
Trails, it's
understand.
the trails of the Rails with Trails.
I know what you're talking about.
Also, we redrafted the letters for Jerry and his guys to make sure that you have full permission and access to patrol the, not patrol, but you have permission if there's people hanging out on the railroad property. And those letters went out to all the jurisdictions. And the main thing that we're dealing with and challenged with at the moment is the sale of the depot property in Ukiah for the courthouse. It's been an incredibly long and bureaucratic process. And NCRA's fiscal future kind of rides on that going forward. And it had to go to the Public Works Board of the state amongst a bunch of other ones, because dealing with courthouses is very challenging, as we may find out, dealing with property where the courthouse used to be here. All the T's had been crossed and I's dotted, and the Department of Finance Board threw up some last-minute claim. So we were hoping that it was going to be on the Public Works agenda Friday, and in fact it is not, because the Department of Finance raised some last-minute concerns. So I guess all of the judges and NCRA director and the city of Ukiah are meeting on that tomorrow to strategize.
How big of a
It's
piece
so
of
close to
property
being
are they
done.
trying to sell?
It's a pretty big piece of property. It's not just the depot, but I can get you the acreage on
No, I'm
it.
just curious. I mean, when
The value of the additional property is contingent on the fact that the courthouse is going to go there. I mean, that's sort of one of the,
Don't they have
Thanks.
that, did they convert the depot building itself to some sort of an art venue?
is the current offices of the Arts Council of Mendocino.
Are they gonna
I
do
believe
away
that's
with
going to
that?
stay there.
Oh, okay.
The plan, and I'm trying to get updated plans from Sage, but the plan has the new courthouse building being behind that. And one of the things that was brought up today is, well, the state may not feel urgency to get this done. I mean, it's so close to being done. This has been like years and years in the making. 6 inches from the goalpost. One of the things that I don't know if the Department of Finance cares about, I'm sure they don't, is the fact that the current courthouse is completely out of ADA compliance. Never mind prisoners coming off the street into the, I mean, there's all sorts of issues with that, and there's a lot of push behind getting this done so that they can build a new one.
Those front steps aren't adequate for ADA, you're saying?
There's floors that you can't actually access.
You're gonna put a ramp down to 101 or something?
Okay, well,
I have
yeah.
another committee.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
sorry.
The Economic Development and Financing Committee will be meeting tomorrow afternoon at 2. at their new office on 205 North Bush. I reported 2 weeks ago that we had exceeded the 250,000, which was the minimum to activate a direct public offering. And this week, we have exceeded the 350,000 that is necessary to fully fund the Mendocino Wool Mill project. So that was very exciting to exceed our goal. I will find out tomorrow if we have significant amount over 350,000, are we going to be looking at other projects to fund? And also when matching grants come in, which we're hoping will happen in the fall, that would perhaps also open up some more public, local economic development financing by local investors, which is the exciting thing that this new direct public offering does. Allows us to all citizens can invest in our local economy. So anyway, that'll be very exciting, and there's other stuff going on, which is other loans to enterprises and the co-work facility in Ukiah, but that meeting will be tomorrow afternoon.
They want to fund a water line project?
There you go.
Okay, any council member reports or recommendations? Any good and welfare?
Yeah, I was able to go to the Sip Some Soup event on, boy, it was a full weekend as far as events in the city of Willits this weekend. Saturday. As always, it's a really neat event, and I see folks in the community that I don't see any other time of year, and it was a good turnout and neat event. And I was also able to go to the Art Center for their reception, which the show right now is the Art Center members' artwork. And on that note, they're having a chamber mixer on the 24th, maybe? The Art Center is 25th, which I think is like I'm not sure what date it is, but that should be positive as well. They really want to make sure that they're showing off their space and the work that they've done so they can encourage people to use it.
Well, maybe the day before that, the lease can be approved.
Maybe.
Or else you can't have the party.
No, the party's happening either way.
So I guess on council member good and welfare, I'd report out that I did have the opportunity to go to the Miss Mendocino pageant this weekend. Jerry's daughter did a wonderful job, as did Gordon Logan's daughter, Tara, and it was a fun event. It's the first time I've ever been to one of those, and our local gals did Willits very well. So,
And you might want to mention Edie Ciccarelli's birthday.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, that's right.
Quite an event.
Edie was in fine form on Friday the 5th. Our Willits native turned 108, and she got up and danced a little bit. And
Oldest person in Mendocino County,
that's
is what the supervisor said.
They say, yeah.
It must be the water.
And she could go for a long, she's a pretty spry little gal. Anyway, a lot of fun, and it was really, they did it as a luncheon at the normal Friday senior lunch, and I'm sure it was the biggest senior lunch that they've served in, by far. There had to be 100 people there. It seemed like at one point.
And Bruce and his son were kind enough to play music.
And Bear.
And Bear at the event, and also Lillian Vogel from Ukiah happened to be there, and she's 106.
Yeah, I know it. You put the two of those together, and you darn near get back to George Washington.
That was kind of cool.
Very cool.
You got
Anyway. One here, Bruce.
Yes.
I was remiss in mentioning earlier that we are in the process of hiring an assistant engineer. We have an accepted offer of employment. I don't feel like I can announce who it is tonight because we're still in the pre-employment process, but we're feeling pretty excited and confident about that. And at the next meeting, I'm sure I'll be able to
Introduce them?
Mm-hmm.
They got Willits roots.
Yes.
That's cool. All right, I'm sure you miss getting home at a reasonable hour, but there's no, I see no closed sessions.
Becoming a
Habit
yeah.
that we can endure.
And I saw Doug Bosco at NCRA, and he said,
Oh.
boy, isn't it nice that we're not seeing each other over Brook Trails litigation?
So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
Larry and Polly seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Where's that beef?